Hey Raghunath, tell everyone about our Patreon community.
Sure, Kaustubha. The Wisdom of the Sages Patreon community is an incredible online yoga resource. If you like the type of yoga wisdom and culture we share on the show, then our Patreon community is a great next step. This is a listener-supported podcast, and any level of sponsorship will unlock a wide range of live and archived classes, talks, and even workshops.
Raghunath teaches, I teach, and we have a host of other excellent teachers on topics ranging from yoga philosophy, asana classes, storytelling, Ayurveda, kirtan, cooking, meditation, and a lot more.
We even have an incredible online Bhakti 12-step recovery group.
So if you want to check it out, go to patreon.com/wisdom of the sages.
All right, let's get it on.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Live from Manhattan's Upper West Side of New York City, this is Wisdom of the Sages. I'm your host today, Kaustubha Das. Raghunath's got the day off. Mara's here in the car. Good morning, Mara.
Good morning, Prabhu.
How you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Okay.
Another day, another show from the truck.
That's right. You know, Raghunath, somehow he lives out in the country on the farm there. And he had some good, he finally, after years, finally got some good kind of internet hookup, but then something went wrong with it and they couldn't get it fixed, right? The people just don't respond.
Yeah, that's right. We're still working on trying to get the Starlink dish fixed, but I mean, I don't even know what's wrong with it or if we have to buy a new one or what's going on.
Okay. But in any case, we're here and we're making it work today.
Yes.
And today is our interview day. We have our very special guest and maybe our most frequent guest, the spiritual scientist Chaitanya Charan. We'll be bringing him in a minute. But before we do, Mara, do we have any announcements to make?
We do a Bhakti recovery group meetings today at 9:30 a.m. and 7 p.m. Eastern time.
Okay. And then tomorrow we're back at
6 a.m. Eastern time.
Okay, we're back in Srimad Bhagavatam at 6 a.m. tomorrow. Okay, wonderful. Thank you, Mara. Thank you for coming and getting us set up. Okay, and so let's bring on Chaitanya Charan Prabhu. Chaitanya Charan is a longtime friend. He's a monk, kind of born and raised in the Radha Gopinath Mandir, the Chowpatty Temple in Mumbai, one of our favorite places, kind of a home away from home for Raghunath and myself. He's the author of 27 books that explain the relevance of Vedic wisdom texts, including Bhagavad-gita and Ramayana and other books. He's the author of the world's only daily blog on the Bhagavad-gita called GitaDaily.com, where he's written over 4,000 articles on the Bhagavad-gita. Prolific. He's an invited speaker for TED Talks, for World Peace Conferences at UNESCO, Intel, Google, Microsoft, Salesforce, Stanford, Princeton, Yale, Harvard, MIT, Cambridge. They all want him. But we have him here today on Wisdom of the Sages. Chaitanya Charan Prabhu, welcome to Wisdom of the Sages.
Thank you. It's a delight to be here. Currently, I'm a 3-4 month tour of the West, UK, America, Canada, and wherever I go, I meet people who hear the Wisdom of the Sages. So it's my fortune and honor to be on such a far-reaching and transformative forum as what you have pioneered. I said this is the single biggest outreach initiative that has happened in the last decade, if not last 2 decades. So I also hear your podcasts intermittently, not regularly, but the way you make bhakti contemporary is landmark. I'm so grateful to be here, Prabhu.
Thank you so much. You're in Houston right now?
Yes.
Giving some talks?
Yes, I have some talks today morning. And then after 3 days, I'll be here.
Okay, and you come to New York soon. We're looking forward to that. Raghunath is trying to line up a program for you to speak in upstate New York at the Super Soul Farm sometime in May, I think, right?
Yes. I'll be coming on Saturday evening there for the
Oh,
program.
okay. So we'll be announcing that soon then, I'm sure. Wonderful. Now, Prabhu, we thought maybe today we discuss, last time we had you on, we spoke about Bhagavad Gita.
Yes.
And we thought we might go more into that today, but from a different angle. Do you remember our last conversation?
Yes, we discussed about how the Bhagavad Gita talks about various levels of identity.
Yeah.
That there is functional identity and there's fundamental identity.
Yep.
And it's important that so the Gita helps us resolve conflicts by going to the root of our identity. So that was one thing that we discussed, several things, but was that what you remember also?
Yeah, I remember that. I also remember discussing a bit about we were discussing like the battle. In other words, that although the Bhagavad Gita is taking place on a battlefield, actually, whenever Krishna's speaking about the battle to Arjuna, he's talking more about an internal battle than the battle that was taking place, and how it does.
Yes.
I know that you spoke from that angle too, but you wanted to take a different approach. We were earlier in the week. We were discussing this word Pari Prashnena, from this famous text from Bhagavad Gita, text 434, where it says that you should question a seer of the truth. And you should do Pari Prashnena, that from all different angles you can approach it, or a question from many different directions. And so a Bhagavad Gita especially is a text that you can do that with. So what angle would you like to explore Bhagavad Gita from today?
Yes, there's one notion which I have been encountering repeatedly. I was in UK and there I met one person who's just coming to Bhakti. And he said he was in the former Soviet Russia. And he said life was extremely difficult over there. And he was slightly introduced to Bhakti there, but now he's come to UK and he says, my life is so much better. I'm able to practice Bhakti much better now. But he said that I'm often told by Bhakti practitioners that, that thinking that your life is better now, that is a form of illusion, because this world is a place of distress. And the more we realize that the world is a place of distress, the more we will be able to focus on our spirituality. And he said that my life is objectively better. So should I deny that? Can I not see the divine blessings in my life in this world when they're manifesting? Are they not blessings? So there is this world rejecting view, which is often propagated. And I feel that is rife with misconceptions. So how the Gita's view is actually life affirming and world affirming. Maybe that is a topic we'll discuss today.
So let's define these terms. What exactly do you mean by life or world affirming, as opposed to, you said negating, was it?
Yeah, world negating, world denying.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So see, the idea is if you consider two-level reality, this is the material world, this is the spiritual world.
Okay.
And one way of looking at it is, as material world is a place of distress, it is a place of godlessness, and the spiritual world is a place of happiness, that is the place of God consciousness.
Okay.
So this I would call more like a black and white or a dualistic view of looking at the world. But the Gita's view is that while there is some credence for this, that the divine doesn't just exist in the spiritual world. The divine exists in this world also. So we can serve the divine, we can remember Krishna even in this world, we can serve him, we can express our love for him. And life in this world can also be meaningful. So Swakarmanatam Abhyarcha Siddhim Vindati Manav. In the 18th chapter, Krishna talks about how through your work, worship the divine Lord. Why? Because Yataha Pravrittir Bhutanam Yena Sarvamidam Tatam. He says that from that divine, everything has come about. And not only that it has come about and now there's no connection. It has emerged from the divine, but it is also sustained, pervaded by the divine. It's present everywhere. So our hope, it's not that, say, when we go to a temple or a holy place, that's only when we are practicing bhakti. In our home also we can be practicing bhakti. In our workplace also we can be practicing bhakti. While bhakti is a matter of actions, it's also a matter of attitudes. So actions are external, attitudes are internal. So that's what I broadly mean by world affirming, life affirming. that my family and my work are not just something to get out of the way so that I can focus on the real work of real purpose of life, which is of, say, practicing bhakti.
Okay. Yeah, the term tantric or tantra,
Yeah.
From what little I understand about it, it has something to do with this idea, is it not? That through this world we transform,
Yes.
rather than by solely stepping away from the world, but by going into the world, we actually transform.
Yes. Definitely. Now, Tantra has some expressions which have become distorted over time,
Yeah.
where the idea is that, like in any activity, we say we can function in office, but it does not mean that everything that we do in office is like office work. We could be gossiping, we could be doing politicking, we could be wasting our time, we could be surfing nonsense. So there is certain work in the office that is office work, and that work can be done at home also.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not that everything in the material world, every single thing. So that means somebody cannot say that I will slaughter animals, for example, and my slaughtering of animals is a service to God. Well, there are certain activities which can't be done, but we can come to that little later to specifics. But yeah, Tantra is the idea that, so basically there are two broad schools of thought. Vedanta is matter and spirit are completely separated. Give up matter to come to spirit.
Mm-hmm.
But Tantra is that, okay, matter can be used to approach spirit. Now, which matter can be used, which matter can't be used, that has to be carefully considered. And if
Sure.
Tantra doesn't consider those differences at all, then that Tantra becomes a little more deluding or entangling.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Mm.
Oh, so let me try to let me try to understand clearly where we're going here. On one hand, we're saying if someone were to just look at this world, the first conclusion they're going to come to likely is that this world is real, right? That this world is truth. I can see it. I can perceive it. I'm not perceiving something that doesn't exist. I'm perceiving something that exists. This world is real. Then a deeper thinker might say, no, actually, if you look deeper, you can see that this world in a sense is unreal. It's almost like a dream. We don't think that our dreams are real. We think that our dreams are these illusory manifestations that come and disappear forever. If you examine this more deeply, you'll see that this world is an illusion. Now we have two opposing viewpoints, right? Apparently entirely contradictory. And then there could be a third view that is saying that in one sense this world is, and each of those views will have its consequences, right? If we view this world entirely as real, then we're going to focus on we'll likely identify with the body as real, and through that we're going to see that adjusting this world so that I can enjoy through the body kind of becomes my path in life.
Yes. So there is, and you articulated the issue very clearly. Let's put it in another way in terms of, say, 4 quadrants.
Okay.
You can say that there is this world, and is there some world beyond this world? There is this reality, and is there more to reality than what we perceive?
Mm-hmm.
So, because in English literary speech, the technical word uses metonym. Metonym is different from metaphor. Like you have the White House. The White House declared war on Russia. Now, White House is something that literally exists. But it is not that the White House suddenly developed a voice and started speaking. The White House exists, and the White House also represents something more than the White House.
So it's a conventional way of speaking. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, it refers to the executive wing of the US government. So the Gita's philosophy is that like sometimes people say there is more to reality than meets the eye. There is more than what meets the eye. So the Gita's philosophy is what meets the eye is reality, but reality is more than what meets the eye.
Okay.
So the body is real, but there is more to our identity than our body. So the material world is real, and there is more to reality than the material world. So if you take it that way, this world, so the 4 quadrants we can have. On the right axis, on the horizontal axis, say we have the material world is real, and it is another world, we can call it non-material world, spiritual world. this world is real, another world is real. So you could have one, the right bottom could be this world is real, other world idea is false. And second, we could have this world is false, the other world is false. The third would be, the left top would be, this world is false, the other world only is real. And the right top would be, this world is real and the other world also is real. So we could have four quadrants like that.
Okay.
So
and which quadrant are you suggesting we situate ourselves in?
yeah, well, the Bhagavad Gita talks about the fourth quadrant. That this world is real and the other world also is real.
Okay, there's reality on both levels.
Reality in both levels, yes.
Before we go further, we discussed a consequence of accepting that this world is real and any other talk of another world is false. Right. We mentioned that if that's how I see reality, this world is real, there is no other real world. Then consequentially, go ahead.
Yeah, that would be what would we call as materialism. So if you can right bottom quadrant, this world alone is real. There's no other world. Well, we could say that that's the philosophy or the worldview that is most common nowadays.
Sure.
But there are several logical problems with that. Because first of all, we all long for a better place. We all intrinsically hope and desire that life can be better. And with scientific and technological advancement, the promise was that there is no need for another religious or spiritual paradise because technology itself will make this world into a paradise.
Right.
And now technology has definitely improved a lot of things, but the world has not become a paradise. While things have improved externally, internally things have become far worse. And that is why for so many people, now their idea of another world has become a fictional world created by technology. So people may watch movies, people may watch video games, and sometimes there are these Star Wars or DC Universe or some Marvel. People get immersed in this. We go to these conventions called Comic Cons, that people wear dresses like
have you been to it?
Characters, and for them these characters are like real.
Yeah, and it seems that historically where we are right now is there's a major acceleration in terms of creating an artificial world with our technology, like
yes,
particularly right now.
Exactly. So while we can appreciate the technological advancement which is making this artificial world possible, but it's a bit concerning. Why are so many people wanting to go into that world? Because the world we live in as we experience it is at best unsatisfying. It's at best boring. It may not be distressing constantly, but it's unfulfilling. It is boring. So we inherently want something more than what this world offers. So another way to put it, that's the attraction to the supernatural is natural. Attraction to the supernatural is natural within us. And that's why we look for something. In the Star Wars, there's this idea of a force where people can just choke someone or move objects without touching them or affect people's minds. Now, in real life, that's not possible, but people watch it. They suspend their disbelief because our mind wants something more exciting. Our heart wants something which is more than the world revealed by the staid laws of physics.
Okay, so let's say someone thinks deeper and they recognize, they contemplate the temporality of this world. They make a mental adjustment.
It's not just temporality, it's also the insubstantiality.
What do you mean by that?
If it is temporary, that's a problem, no doubt. There is an Italian saying which says that at the end of the game of chess, both the king and the pawn go back into the same box. So like that, somebody may become very famous, somebody may become maybe even anonymous in the world, but at the end, everybody goes to the grave and it doesn't really matter for them. Right. So it's temporary, but even while it is there, it's insubstantial. It doesn't fulfill the heart. So both are there. Sorry.
Okay, no, thank you. And so someone begins to, likely from hearing from ancient texts, they begin to view the world through the insights of those texts. They may, through practices of meditation, begin to develop a sense of observing my own mind, observing my situations from a removed perspective, and they may actually begin to develop some realization about the illusory nature of this world, and conclude, go to the opposite quadrant, that this world is entirely unreal, and that truth is beyond it, or truth exists outside of it. It itself
Yeah.
is entirely. So what are the consequences of that type of thought?
Yeah. Actually, before we go there, there's another likelihood is they go
Okay.
that the left bottom. There is no other world which is real, and even this world is not real. That is
Okay.
even more toxic. Because people are a little more thoughtful, they can see through the promises of technology that okay, they're good, but they're not really going to fulfill the human heart. So there was one existentialist philosopher, Alberto Camus, who wrote that life is suffering. I'm paraphrasing. Life is suffering, and every endeavor to remove suffering only increases suffering. Therefore, the only philosophical question worth asking is whether to commit suicide today or tomorrow.
Okay.
It's a horrendously dark worldview. So to think that neither this world is real nor another world is real, it means that life has no meaning at all. It strips away life of all meaning. So if the right bottom quadrant is materialism, the left bottom would be nihilism. That everything is reacted and false.
All
And
right.
that is the most toxic worldview. Now we may give up on, sometimes people get disappointed, we get depressed. So we may give up on activities. I just don't feel like the job is worth doing. I don't believe that this activity is worth doing. To give up on activities is bad. To give up on people is worse. People are all bad. Nobody can be trusted. Like I saw one car bumper sticker. The more I get to know people, the more I love my dog.
A lot of people think that way.
Yeah, so it's bad. It's bad to give up on activities. It's worse to give up on people, but it's the worst to give up on ourselves. My life itself is not worth living, and that is a extremely, say, toxic mentality.
Okay.
So that is nihilism.
Sure.
And then what you're talking about would be this world is false and the other world is real. Other world alone is real.
Yeah.
That often is impersonalism. That is Brahma Satya Jagan Mithya. And that is a widely thought of belief, but that also makes a person very passive and lethargic and even apathetic about this world.
I think that's a big concern. Currently, the term spiritual bypassing seems to apply to this kind of
Yes, exactly.
type of thought.
The problem is that the world, while we talk about it as a dream, the dream metaphor is used frequently in the philosophical literature of Vedanta also. But Baldev Vidyabhushan actually turns the argument of the dream around. And he says that different people have different kinds of dreams. And sometimes some people may even have some spiritual dreams where the divine or some spirit, the guru, can appear in the dream. So he says that if the dreams were completely unreal, then how could the divine or the representative of the divine appear? And why would different people have different dreams? Why would unreality be diverse? It's just unreality. So his reasoning is that the dream experience is also a level of reality. And that different people have different kinds of dreams, because even the dream world can be an arena where we get the results of some of our minor past karma. So like in the major past karma, I might meet with a car accident, and I get physically several fractures. But sometimes people get nightmares.
Sure.
Now there are some people who get nightmares far more than others.
Okay.
Now why is that? I was in Canada. I met one person. He says, "I'm afraid of sleeping." Why?
Yeah.
As soon as I sleep, I start getting nightmares. So now why is that happening? So that means that there is some negative karma which is getting exhausted which is getting expended or manifested in the
In the
sleep
dream
and the
state.
dream.
Yeah.
So in the dream, minor karmic results come. In the waking state, major karmic results come. So to say that this life is like a dream is not necessarily to say that, okay, because the dream is unreal, so life is unreal. The waking life is unreal. But the other way is that this waking life is like the dream life means that just like the dream life is real but temporary, similarly the waking life is also real but temporary.
You know, earlier, this is an important point. Earlier this week, we were discussing that in one sense, the dream, it has its physical manifestation within the brain, right? It has its chemicals and, you know, that are, you know, electrical charges within the synapses in the brain. If that dream has a physical representation.
Yes, true, definitely. Like
And so in that sense, in that sense, it's tangible.
Yeah, it's tangible. During sleep, we go through different states. And when we go through different states, there are, based on the kind of eye movements or the brain waves that are coming, you know, the researchers can detect when you are dreaming and when you're not dreaming.
Yeah.
So even if somebody equates only the physical with the real, then the dream has effects at the physical level also. Not all the effects, but some of the effects are there. Now, a person being mauled by a tiger, their limbs may not be cut off, but at the level of the brain, they are experiencing the horror of having their limbs cut off, and there are
chemicals are being released. Heart rates are being affected, as you're saying. Eye movements are being affected. It's manifesting.
Yeah. So
and now, theoretically, theoretically, I you know, because the brain is such a sophisticated piece of equipment, we don't know how to manipulate dreams, as far as I understand. But you theoretically, you would think that you know that with the right knowledge and technology, you could actually create dreams in a human brain if you knew how to fire, you know, if you knew how to do it, right?
Yeah,
in other words,
that is one of the key differences. That is one of the key differences between there are 4 states of consciousness that the Mundaka Upanishad talks about. There is Jagruti, the waking state.
Yeah.
Where our consciousness comes from the Atma through the mana, from the soul through the body to the physical body, from the soul to the mind to the physical body to the outer world. That is the waking stage.
Subtle to more tangible to still more.
Yes. So that's Jagruti, that is the waking state. That's the stage we are in. Okay. The second is where the consciousness comes from the Atma to the level of the mind and barely to the level of the body. Not much to the level of the body. That is the Swapna stage. So in Swapna, the point is that consciousness is still present, but is not manifesting fully at the physical level.
Right.
And there's some consciousness still, because if there's no consciousness, then we would not hear an alarm bell. If somebody threw water on us, we wouldn't wake up at all. So there is some, but the major consciousness is at the level of the mind. Now, if the consciousness is withdrawn and it is barely manifest even at the level of the mind, that is called the Sushupti, or the deep sleep state. So Jagruti, Swapna, Sushupti. And then when the consciousness goes to the spiritual level of reality, that is called the Turya or the Samadhi stage. So this is different, these are little technical terms. But the key point is that what we call as unconsciousness, in normal terminology, what we call as unconsciousness is not actually the absence of consciousness. It is a state of consciousness where consciousness is absent at the physical level.
I got you.
But consciousness still exists.
Yeah.
So it's just not manifested. Yeah.
An analogy came to me earlier in the week on the show, but that I think to some degree helps to illustrate this. And that is like, say you were in a room with a speaker, like a stereo speaker, and you heard sound come from that speaker, music, let's say. Then you could analyze that speaker and say, this speaker is the source of this sound. This is where it originates. This is where it's coming from. By studying this speaker and its vibrations, we can understand everything about this music and where in its origin. But then you could go back a step and say, no, actually it's connected to a radio signal, right? That's coming out of a tower somewhere else in the city. That's the source. Then you could go back another step and say, no, they're actually playing a vinyl record that is creating the vibration that's being broadcast through the signal that's manifesting in your speaker. It's the record that's the source. Then you could go back another, stage and say, no, there was a group of musicians that were vibrating instruments and vibrating their vocal cords that were creating the vibrations that entered into that record. And so, science commonly looks at the brain and saying this is the source of consciousness. But we understand, there's a mind behind it. And then behind that, there's, ultimately there's a soul behind it, that's conscious, and that's, you keep going back. So you're saying consciousness, it can get cut off at a particular point. We call it unconsciousness when we don't see it manifesting in the body, but it doesn't mean that it's not there.
Yes. See, the brain, is it the generator of consciousness or is it the transmitter of consciousness?
Right.
There's a debate in neuroscience also on this. And more researchers seem to be indicating that the brain is more like a radiator than simply a transmitter.
Okay.
So, I mean, we could go into that direction.
Yeah.
But if you want, I can talk a little more scientific evidence for that, or we could come back on our topic.
Well, let's not go too far. Maybe we should get back to our topic. But yeah,
it gives an excellent example. It's something similar to a laptop. The laptop we use to communicate with someone. So right now I'm talking through Zoom with you.
Yeah.
Now I could say that you are simply a creation of the computer.
Yeah.
And if I were watching some fiction, it could be.
Right.
But even that fiction is created somewhere.
Sure.
So what appears on the computer screen may have a reality somewhere else. That reality may be identical to what is being seen. It may be different from what is being seen. Say, for example, if I'm seeing a movie where I'm seeing a stunt person, hero jumping from a huge mountain down. And in reality, that is not possible. But still, somebody has created that.
Right.
So that whatever appears in the brain, it has its source somewhere else. Now, whether that is real, like am I watching a fiction series, or am I watching something which is really a real event happening? That can vary. But again, this is actually similar to that what we are observing with our senses. There is a reality to it.
Right.
But is the reality reflecting a higher reality, or is it just a distortion of that higher reality?
Okay. Yeah.
So,
like a glove is, we can look at a glove and say it's a glove, it's real. Or we could look at it and say, no, it's not a real hand. It's but we can understand, no, the glove took a shape because there was the real hand.
Yes.
There's,
that's a very good example.
Yeah, there's so deeper thinker can understand the glove is real, but there has to be something else that was behind the existence of this glove. There's two levels of reality.
Yes. So not only is it the philosophical, if I just conclude the discussion of this third quadrant, this world is false, the other world is real. One is practically, it can become very life negating, it can become very passivity inducing, as you said, it may lead to spiritual bypass, where real issues are neglected in the name of spirituality. But even from a philosophical perspective, if that world is the only reality, then the question always comes, where did this world at all come from? Why did this unreality come about? And now, as compared to that, the fourth quadrant is this world is real, and there's another world which is real, and that is a bigger reality on which this world is based. So, so God is,
and this is the quadrant that you're saying is the Bhagavad-gita quadrant.
Yeah, this is the Bhagavad-gita quadrant. Yes, definitely.
Okay.
See, at one level, the Gita does say this world is a place of distress, dukkha layam shashvati. But at the same time, the Gita also states that Krishna descends again and again to this world. Sambhavami yuge yuge. I come again and again. And why does he come? He doesn't come simply to tell people this world is a place of distress, get out of here. He comes to establish order in this world. So he considers this world so important that he comes to establish order in the world.
Okay, this is interesting because the Gita, certainly we could take quotes from the Gita that are speaking about the illusory nature of this world.
Yeah.
At the same, simultaneously, Krishna is countering Arjuna's desire to walk away from the world.
Yes.
and instructing him to deeply engage within the world, even in a
Perfect.
horrible, ghastly way, right? But in the name of Dharma, for the purpose of Dharma.
Yes.
So if this world were entirely unreal, then the only explanation you could give for that is that it's like a training ground or something like that. Like it's, you know what I mean? In other words, I suppose one could argue that the reason Krishna is asking Arjuna to do this is because it's within this field that he will learn to transcend the illusion. But what you're saying is there's more to it than that, is that actually Krishna cares about this world
Oh, yes.
and the experience that people are having within it.
Yes. There is one way of looking at this world is that we make it like a concession. Yeah, what you do here also, it can be like a preparation ground for spirituality. It's not real spirituality. It's like a practice run.
Yeah.
Called the net practice that a person does before the actual event.
It's like a flight simulator or something like that. You practice in the flight simulator and then you fly a plane.
Yes. So we could say this is a practice run, and that is true at one level. Definitely, even that understanding also gives a lot of substantiality to this world, because how well we practice determines how well we actually be able to do the real act. But along with that, the Gita says that Krishna exists in this world also. Krishna cares for this world, and he said there's one term which Krishna uses twice in the Gita: Loka Sangraha. Loka Sangraha is maintenance of the world. Loka Sangraha evapi sampashyan kartum arhasi. He says that when we function in the world, we have to contribute to the world. One of the key principles of the Gita is reciprocity. That reciprocity means if we take something from someone, we need to give something back to that someone.
Okay.
If we're taking something in the relationship, we have to give that to them. If we're taking something from our country, we need to give something back to the country. If we are taking something from the world, we need to give something back to the world.
Okay.
Now, I could say that, okay, the world is coming from Krishna and I'm serving Krishna, so therefore, why should I give it back to Krishna? Well, it's not that simple, because if you consider that I'm here, and we could say we exist in increasing circles. Say, for example, I exist in a family. I exist in a community.
Yeah.
I exist in a county. I exist in a particular circle of professionals. I exist in a particular, say, age group of people. Yeah. I exist in a particular religious community. I exist in a particular religion. I exist in a particular nation. So we have various levels of belongings, we could say, to these various groups.
Okay.
And with each of these, we get something. And if we get something, we are expected to give something back in return.
You're saying that's just a law that operates within the universe. If reciprocation doesn't take place, then it has to be corrected in some painful way, in a sense. Is that?
Yeah, exactly. That's, if you see, one meaning of the word dharma is that which sustains.
Yes. Right.
Now, what sustains? It is, in one sense, harmonious action that sustains. If I travel by car, if I drive by car, then I am being a part of a bigger unit, that is the road transport system.
Okay.
And I can take the facility of the roads, I can take facility of the bridges, I can take it all. But at basic level, harmonious participation means I need to follow the traffic rules.
And pay taxes to maintain the roads.
Yes, exactly. So when we take something, we give something. At a more personal level, we could say that when a newborn baby utters its first cry, its cry for comfort, for food, mother picks her up and offers her a breast milk. Now, the mother offering her breast milk is one of the most intimate acts of love that is there in the world. And definitely the love that a mother feels for the child is real. At the same time, the mother did not do anything special to manufacture milk in her breasts. Mm-hmm. It is the same higher arrangement which brought a child through her womb into the world, also arranged for milk in her breasts. So the milk that a mother is offering is an expression of her love and also the love of Krishna, who made that arrangement for the milk to come. Okay. So if somebody says, I only love my mother and I don't look at Krishna, that is one side of it. That's like materialism, going to the right bottom corner. But somebody
Yes.
says, okay, my mother didn't do anything. It is only Krishna's love coming through the mother. No, your mother sacrificed. Your mother did so many things to care for you. So it's like the mother's love is real, but there is more to that love than the mother's love. There is
Okay.
Krishna's love manifesting through that mother's love also.
Okay. So so what you just shared, you just brought us through different quadrants
Yeah,
through that
exactly.
example. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Like mother is real, but there's nothing beyond mother. So I have a duty to mother. Oh no, there's mother, but there's something beyond mother. I also have to reciprocate with that as well. Both are real. Both must be
Yes.
recognized and reciprocated with.
Yes, true. So this
Okay.
idea that, if you could, I like to use two words for it. I can give some Sanskrit words. This is a spiritual world, is a material world. So there are two broad forms of bhakti. There is immersive bhakti, where we turn away from the world and immerse ourselves in Krishna. This is during our
Okay.
sadhana, when we are chanting the holy names, when you're doing kirtan, even when we are hearing spiritual wisdom. So we turn away from the world to focus on Krishna.
Yeah.
And that is one form of bhakti, immersive bhakti. Krishna talks about in 12.8 in the Bhagavad-gita, even 12.9. But then this is the bhakti which takes us upward from this world to the other world. But Krishna also talks about another kind of bhakti which engages us in this world, but in a higher consciousness.
Uh-huh.
And we could call that as inclusive bhakti.
Yes.
Inclusive means the domain of bhakti includes this world. So amazing is the immersive bhakti, which turns away from the world toward Krishna. Inclusive bhakti is which turns to the world to reach Krishna through the world.
Okay.
And that is where we do seva.
Yeah.
Our seva, it
Sadhana
can
and
be
seva.
sadhana
got
and
it.
seva.
Okay.
So our seva could be just some direct service that we are doing. We come to a temple, we go to a holy place, and we clean, say, a sacred pond or something like that. We go and help in doing cooking for the temple. But it could also be that we do our job, we take care of our home in a mode of service to Krishna. This home is also a temple of Krishna. We take care of our body. We may exercise in a mode of service to Krishna. The body is also a temple of Krishna. So I'm exercising to take care of this gift which Krishna has given me. And not only that, Krishna exists in the body. This is also a temple. So inclusive and immersive, both forms of bhakti are important.
This is very interesting what you just brought up on many different levels. Because both on a historical level, which I want to get into in a second, but on an individual level too, it's occurring to me as you say this that the healthiest, when one's healthy in their practice of bhakti, let's say, that their sadhana is nourishing their seva, and their seva is nourishing their sadhana. Their immersive practices are, when I say informing, what I mean is driving even, and driving and nourishing and evolving through their sadhana. I'm sorry, through their seva. In other words, my immersive practices are coming out and manifesting in a beautiful way through seva. Because what I feel internally, I begin to manifest externally through seva, and my practices of seva are purifying me and giving me insights that I'm bringing into my sadhana, and that both, and it's kind of like
yes, they work in synergy,
like,
not just harmony, but
yeah,
synergy.
exactly.
Each energizes the other, actually.
Yeah, and now from a please continue.
Yeah, and that is how it is ideally meant to be done. I was in San Diego, and there I met one person who hears wisdom of sages. So he had come for the first time. His sister had brought him there.
Okay.
And he said, my sister got involved in this bhakti business. I was a little concerned. She was spending so much time chanting, and I thought that she's just wasting her time. And initially I was opposed, but then I saw that she was becoming calmer. She was becoming more understanding. So when I saw that, I wanted to know, what is it? So she was more helpful, she was more kind. So it was the immersive aspects didn't really impressive. He thought you're just being rejected.
Yes.
But the inclusive aspects, because she also saw that my bhakti is not just by how well I turn away from the world, but how I deal with people in the world.
Mm-hmm.
So, in fact, immersive bhakti without inclusive bhakti, it can not only lead to we denying the world, it can also antagonize the world from us. Because we start thinking the world is simply Maya, and we start demeaning people.
Well, historically, to expand on your point, I was thinking historically, it's very interesting because our lineage, in one sense, our Gaudiya Vaishnava lineage, it's connected to the Brahma Sampradaya.
Yes.
So, which goes back into the deepest antiquity. But the branch that we particularly practice, in which has spread throughout the world in the form of the Hare Krishna movement, you can trace back 500 years to this branch of the larger branch. So it has this 500-year history. And it took, even the name Gaudiya Vaishnava is a geographical term representing the area of India in which it took place, which is largely Bengal and Orissa to some degree currently. And historically, at that time, it was a time of Muslim rule in that area. And so even the initial followers of Sri Chaitanya, like the Goswamis, the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan, who established big temples, like the Radha Govindaji temple is a big temple. It was a place where there was meant to be that inclusive practice would be taking part, but quickly those temples were attacked. The deities from those temples were brought out of Vrindavan, and the lineage itself, because that political circumstance in many ways forced a more immersive practice of bhakti. Where we have these Babajis, they don't have temples, they live these very simple lives and they meditate all day. Their practice becomes entirely meditative because it's dangerous to practice anything too much externally. And I believe that idea, which is a valid practice, but it kind of became known as like the traditional Gaudiya Vaishnavism or the authentic Gaudiya Vaishnavism.
Exactly, yes.
And then then you come back, 350 years later or so, and you get Bhaktivinoda Thakur and his son, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, who understood that, but also wanted to kind of spearhead a more inclusive practice of bhakti. And they, did it even through missionary work and through clarifying ideas of how our engagement in this world becomes valid bhakti practice.
Yes, beautifully put, Prabhu. So the historically circumstantial became almost philosophically normative. That this is the standard.
Yes.
And continue the same thread of thought. Actually, you could say even within ISKCON, when it started in the West, when Srila Prabhupada came to the West, most of his initial followers were a part of the counterculture. Yes. And that counterculture was already world rejecting.
Right. Yes.
And Prabhupada recognized the universality of bhakti, that it could appeal even to the counterculture. But that does not mean that is the only way for bhakti to be practiced.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. So now, as our movement is moving, as the bhakti movement is going to the second, third generations, we have devotees who are not a part of the counterculture. They are very much a part of the mainstream culture. They have their jobs, they have careers, they have families, they have aspirations, they have social lives. And somehow there is, you could say, something like a jet lag in the conception of bhakti that is being communicated. So there is this, in Western literature, there's this character Rip Van Winkle. He goes to sleep for 100 years and he wakes up. He just, the whole world is as if it was 100 years before.
Yeah.
He thinks it should be like that, but it's completely different.
Right.
So it's almost like many times the way bhakti is presented, it's like we are having this Rip Van Winkle kind of mode. We are presenting bhakti in a very world denying, world negating, world rejecting way. But there is definitely bhakti can be practiced like that. That the immersive can be the only way some people may choose to practice bhakti. The immersive may be the only way in sometimes bhakti can be practiced. But that does not mean that that is the only way bhakti can be practiced at all times. So, the inclusive aspect is also equally important. And there may be many more people who are comfortable with the inclusive practice of bhakti. Then they are also comfortable with the immersive practice. So I would just add 2 points where the balance comes. That the individual balance between immersive and inclusive, I think that depends on one's social position and one's individual disposition. Both are important. Social position and individual disposition.
And I think that individual in both of those adjust according to time, right? Like we're in a position at one point, and then we're not in that position, or we have a disposition at one point, and that may shift as well.
Yes, exactly. So if somebody is taking a position of responsibility in this world, then they cannot be practicing immersive bhakti. If somebody becomes a manager of a temple or a project, and some subordinate comes and says, this person is mistreating me, this person is abusing me. Yeah. And you tell them, okay, all these problems disturb my mind. I chant Hare Krishna, you also chant Hare Krishna. Forget these problems.
Right.
No, okay, if that's what you want to do, that's fine. But then don't be in that position.
Right.
If you are taking a position of responsibility, then that position of responsibility will bring a certain level of inclusive bhakti as a necessity. And so one of the most frustrating things for bhakti practitioners is when they have practical problems and they're given philosophical answers. It just doesn't address the issue.
Right. And at the same time, we see Bhagavatam and Mahabharata is a history of kings just waiting for the moment when they can walk away from it so that they can become more immersive in their practice, right? Like whose lives are, the inclusive demand on their life has been so great that they're but they've been cultivating their devotion over time in that context, have been purified, and are now, and this is a theme of Gita as well. If you're not qualified for the fully immersive practice, then it will be a facade.
Yes, true.
But through this inclusive practice, we can purify ourselves of desire, we can gain deeper insights, and we can prepare ourselves to be more deeply immersive. And I kind of feel, in my own life, as a person, as a kid that grew up in a very what adjective should I use of the world that I grew up in? It was very materialistic, as well as degraded in many different ways. Just the way that I grew up, certainly compared to like a traditional Vedic, even an Indian upbringing. And then being thrust into practice bhakti in my 20s, that the inclusive engagement that I had, I was not at all prepared for deep immersion, deep contemplation, deep meditation, but the social engagement that it provided for me was purifying. And for another person, it may have been through getting married and raising children and having to go into the work world, that becomes the field of their contemplation of bhakti. And as I'm aging, I'm kind of feeling a nice way, a calling to go deeper into my immersive practices, to feel them more deeply.
Yes.
And it seems like it's like a doctor, it's like things have to be prescribed. I think this is what a good guru understands how to do, right? How to adjust that dial. You know what? You're trying to get totally immersive, but you're really not qualified. Let's turn the dial a little bit more over to inclusive, and let's get your body and your mind engaged in a way that's harmonious, that's dharmic, that's harmonious with bhakti. You're going to, from your heart, in your mind you're going to make this an offering, and the time may come when you're going to be able to become more deeply immersive, and it won't be a facade, it'll be real.
Yeah, it goes through different phases. It's nicely put. When I was introduced to Bhakti, I joined one of the most conservative ashrams in India.
Mhm.
And for 10 years, I could say I was mostly in immersive Bhakti. I practically didn't even touch money for 10 years.
Okay.
Because I just didn't have to do everything. Even if I was traveling, the tickets would be arranged. I'll just take the tickets and go. And somebody would always there to pick me up. But then after that, especially the last decade or so, when I've been traveling abroad, outside India, then I have been staying at, not always in the ashrams, but in people's homes and seeing the greater variety. So now my understanding of Bhakti, the importance of the inclusive aspect
Interesting.
has become much more. And so we all go through different phases based on our services.
Yeah.
And of course, our nature is also our time in our life. So just to continue the doctor metaphor from a different perspective, that a doctor who is only studying medical books, but is actually not doing any field work. Doctor doesn't go and actually diagnose patients. Doctor doesn't actually treat patients. Then their knowledge can become very theoretical. Mm-hmm. On the other hand, if the doctor is spending all their time in diagnosing this patient, treating this patient, giving this, the doctor may not really be growing in knowledge. So new diseases might be coming, new treatments might be coming.
Yeah.
And they'll
They
not
have to
be
read
able
the
to,
journals and all of that.
yeah, they'll not be able to offer that service. So
Yeah.
you could say roughly, in the doctors that they're continuing their studies is more like immersive bhakti.
Right.
And they're doing the work of offering medical relief to people. That is like inclusive bhakti.
I see.
So it's like if I am here, my inclusive bhakti is my connection with Krishna.
Yeah.
And my immersive bhakti is my contribution to Krishna through serving this world. And both are important. Now, some doctors, they may not be so interested in research. They just, you just tell me this is treatment, They just want to go and be with people and treat people. Others may be much more interested in research and developing new technologies, new methodologies, and they may not really be doing much groundwork.
Yeah.
So the Bhakti universe is broad enough to include people on various degrees in the spectrum of inclusive and immersive. So some people may want to practice more immersive, some people may want to practice more inclusive. And that is why I say that from the Gita's mood, can you summarize this? From your place, at your pace, access the divine grace.
Okay. Very nice. For this conversation, we could go on because it could go in many different directions. I'll just share a few thoughts as we wrap up here. But one is that I think in our current social atmosphere, particularly in the Western world, people are very concerned to see that any quote unquote religious or spiritual, whether it's institution or tradition, whatever, that if they can't see a practical, inclusive element to it that's helpful to society, they will reject it. It'll lose its appeal immediately, and not only that, they'll likely battle against it, seeing it as spiritual bypassing. So there's that, and I think that some of the greatest, maybe like the key challenge that I see people having is trying to figure out this balance, right? Trying to figure out, I'm supposed to be detached from this world, but I'm also not supposed to spiritually bypass. How do I find my right balance? It seems like this is, 2 decades ago, I don't think I would have seen this rising to the top of people's concerns as they begin to engage with bhakti. But today I see this is really, it's really an important thing that people are trying to get a grip of, people are trying to get a hold of, and fine tuning that's so important. And therefore I appreciate you bringing this topic up and elucidating it so in such a brilliant way. Another point that comes to mind is, historically, again, when I look at Advaita Vedanta, certainly it seems to be it seems to swing heavily to the, you know, as you said, what's this the slogan Jagan Mithya,
Brahma Satya Jagan Mithya, yeah.
Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya, that Brahman is real and this world is entirely false. And if you go back to the writings of Shankara or his earlier followers, they seem to argue strongly in this way. And when you get to the Neo-Vedantins of, you know, more like 100, 150 years ago, it seems to me like they're walking that back a little bit. You know, they're kind of like saying, well, it doesn't actually mean that this world is entirely false. You know, it seems like they don't want to buy into it wholly. And is that your?
Yes, true. You know, even Shankaracharya, sometimes his teachings may have been misapplied. While he did say that this world is unreal, but he also emphasized the importance of doing your duties in this world. Because the way to move from this unreality to reality, according to him also, is by responsibly doing one's duty. So it is not that suddenly any person can just renounce the world. So even I would say, even Shankaracharya, with all due respects to him, you know, he was also not dismissive of the world. Although he did say that the world is illusion, but he was not dismissive of the world entirely. Right. But somehow some of his followers of the centuries, they took that view that this world is to be completely dismissed. And then the modern, what sometimes called Neo-Vedantists, they often have, you could almost gone to the other extreme. So that, you know, this world is the arena of Brahman also. So they have this idea that Daridra Narayana Seva and things like that, serve the poor, and in serving the poor there is God. Right. Yeah, that is true, but that does not mean that God is to be served only by serving the poor. Right. We also need immersive bhakti. Right. So, yeah, historically, our tradition has also been through these phases. I think every tradition goes through the phases where immersive and inclusive bhakti are there. So, of course, that can go towards a little bit more of extreme, either side. So inclusive bhakti can go toward a bit of extreme, not an inclusive spirituality, not necessarily inclusive bhakti, but it can. So for example, in India, there is the conception that of Bharat Mata, that the earth, the goddess, is manifested as the India as the deity, and India as the deity should be worshipped. Yeah. Now, the Mother Earth, Bharat is the name of India. So that is not exactly scriptural. The idea that one should revere the land in which we are born, that is fine enough. Just like we respect the family we are born in, we respect the country we are born in. But that does not mean that that itself is God and that itself is to be worshipped. So the inclusive domain can also become too much, where God is reduced to this world and there is no manifestation of God beyond this world. So sometimes we have to avoid both extremes also.
Yeah, it's a question of tuning it. This has been very helpful.
Exactly.
We're running out of time, but I wanted to bring up, we mentioned how prolific you are in terms of your writing, your publishing books, your blogs on the internet, but recently you've, and you also have a fascinating podcast called the Monks Podcast, which has many episodes up on YouTube, but recently you've started a new podcast with our friend Veda Saraprabhu. Could you share a bit about that with us?
Thank you. So I was inspired by you and Raghu through that. We have been doing so much on the Bhagavatam. I thought maybe my specialty, my home territory is the Bhagavad-gita. So we could have a contemporary discussion on the Bhagavad-gita. So we are focusing on one season where we'll be having 18 sessions. And in the 18 sessions, we'll be discussing one chapter of the Bhagavad-gita. So we are calling this as, we're calling this a Seeker's Quest based on the Bhagavad-gita. And these are every Saturday and Sunday. Saturday and Sunday, they are at 10 to 11 Eastern time. So I send you some information, one podcast link on the YouTube, on the Zoom chat, and I also given the link to our WhatsApp group in case somebody would like to join there. And
so where can they find the podcast? Is it on YouTube?
They are on my YouTube channel. My YouTube channel, they are there. It's Chaitanya Charan. If they search in the Chaitanya Charan Seeker's Quest. So we've done three.
Okay.
We have done three till. In fact, a couple of hours after this, I'll be doing that podcast now.
Okay, so we'll share a link for that in the notes for this episode. Wherever you find this episode, you can find a link for that.
Yes,
that's called the Seeker's Quest.
Seeker's Quest. Yes.
Wonderful. Well, I look forward to checking that out, Prabhu. Thank you so much for being with us again.
Thank you so much, Prabhu.
Like I say, we try to have you on regularly. You always have very interesting, in-depth elucidation. You illuminate these topics in such a brilliant way, Prabhu. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Prabhu. It's my pleasure and honor to be of service. Very good.
And I look forward to seeing you in New York soon.
Yes, I too.
Where are you off to next?
Well, from Houston, I'm going to the other coast. I'm going to Portland and Seattle from here.
Okay, going to the West Coast. Nice.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. We're back with Bhagavatam again tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. Eastern Time. And that's it for now. Thank you all so much, and we'll be seeing you later. It's a beautiful day for a beautiful day, and let the magic flow. Thank you.